news organization in the world.
Incredible shows coming to the Celebrity Theater in the new year. For two big shows, January 11th and 12th, it Sticks. Then MLK weekend, don't miss the legend himself, Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, January 19th and 20th, followed by Chicago on February 12th. Sticks, January 11th and 12th, Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, January 19th and 20th, and Chicago on February 12th. Tickets at celebritytheater.com. Brought to you from your friends at Danny Zalisco Presents.
12 News is everything Arizona, taking you everywhere from A to Z. South Phoenix has outdoor activities all over South Mountain, an historic dairy farm and performing arts for all ages. This week, 12 News is in South Phoenix.
Beautiful homes, 2,500 up to 4,000 square feet. We have some custom light fixtures, double fridge or freezer options, really beautiful finishes inside and out. Wayne Funk with Del Lago Homes. These homes look like custom homes. They are absolutely gorgeous.
12 News is everything Arizona.
Good morning and welcome to Sunday Square Off. I'm Bram Resnick. On today's show, a look back at Arizona's top stories of 2018, a year of historic highs and lows that put the state on the national stage. Plus, what's next in 2019? We'll talk about three stories that will stay in the news. Charter school millionaires. Will anything be done to curb the perfectly legal profiteering at some of Arizona's charter schools? Who's going to win the race for Phoenix mayor and bring some order to a chaotic council? But first, the refugee crisis on our border. It started during the summer, migrant parents being separated from their children. Today, thousands of refugees are camped in Tijuana. The president warning, without evidence, that they're heading to Arizona. So what comes next? We're joined by Larry Sandigo of the Florence Project. Staff and volunteer lawyers for the Florence Project work with migrants and their children in court and in detention. Welcome back to Square Off.
Thank you for having me.
You joined us back in June. At that time, the Trump administration had separated hundreds, if not thousands, of children from their parents at the border. It appears that has not ended. And I want to put up a tweet you posted November 16th. That went viral. I'm going to ask you to read it to us.
In court this morning, I asked the judge if my client could wait outside. She was being fussy. He said yes, and she was carried out. Even then, I could hear her whimpers and cries. She's 2 years old. She had on a pink coat. Today was her deportation hearing.
You were representing a 2-year-old girl. People can't imagine this is happening. How were you and how was she put in that situation?
Well, the Florence Project is the only free legal service provider for children and immigrants in detention. So there's no public defender system, meaning that if someone can't afford an attorney, then they have to represent themselves. So this 2-year-old girl, had the Florence Project not been there, she would have been forced to represent herself. And that's how I got involved in this case. She was going through deportation proceedings, and so I was able to represent her and her best interest.
Where were her parents?
So mom was back in home country.
Okay, so mom, had she come to the U.S. border with mom?
You know, that part was not clear. When she had been apprehended, she had been with her uncle. And what happens with a lot of these families, they're put in an agonizing situation. Do they go back to the situations that they're in? Do they remain separated? You know, earlier this year, the Trump administration was separating parents from their children, and that practice was ordered to be ceased. However, that only applied to parents and their children, meaning that if the child enters with a grandparent or any other blood relative, they can still be separated.
So she was separated. What happened? Where is she now?
So that was a tough situation. It was like, what do you do? How do I represent a 2-year-old? How do I know what she wants? And so in consultation with a child advocate who consulted with social service agencies of what was the best thing for this child, in consultation with her mother, we decided that she would be reunited with mom back in home country. What I really fought for was that she would not have an official deportation order, which is what the government wanted to do.
Did that happen?
It did not. We were able to be successful. She was voluntarily repatriated to home country.
Put on a plane, I would presume.
I would presume.
You just don't know. Wow. So is that largely ended? Are there still a lot of these kinds of cases?
So right now in Arizona, we still have 10 children who were separated from their parents under the zero tolerance approach from the summer that have still not been reunified. But we are still seeing children who are separated, again, from grandparents or other blood relatives who show up at the border.
A lot of the talk right now is about asylum. The president wanting to clamp down on American asylum laws. Refugees in Tijuana seeking asylum. It's unclear where that's headed. Are there any reports of refugees coming here to our borders seeking asylum?
So refugees have been coming to Arizona for some time. You know, we have official ports of entry of Nogales, San Luis, where people can present and ask for asylum. But what I think is important here is that the right to seek asylum is unambiguously protected by both U.S. law and international law. And what that law says is regardless of where one enters the United States or in what manner, one has the right to seek asylum.
And so what are the biggest challenges right now your lawyers are facing?
I think it's one, dealing with the misinformation that's out there. You know, we are the ones that are upholding the law when we defend the rights of asylum seekers and immigrants. I think the other one is just the thought of like due process is, had we not represented this 2-year-old and had she had to represent herself, is that really justice? Is that really due process? And so I think it's misinformation, the public narrative, but also just needing more attorneys that can do this type of work.
How heavy is the asylum load right now?
So on any given day in Arizona, there's 5,000 detained men, women, and children, most of which cannot afford an attorney, most of which we will be the ones that provide those services.
And what's interesting, I read there's a backup of about 1 million cases in immigration court right now.
You know, I can't comment on the exact numbers. I think the Department of Justice would have those exact numbers, but it is an excruciating amount of cases that these judges have to go through.
And I go back to that 2-year-old girl. So without you, what would have happened to her?
It's hard to say. Hard to say, you know, exactly what would have happened, but under the law, because she has no right to government-appointed counsel, she would have had to represent herself. I don't know how the judge would have kept her at the table or how she would have said anything, but that's what the law mandates, is that the judge has no authority to appoint an attorney for her.
And I want to go, I think you touched on this, but I want to go back at it because I bet there are folks wondering, why are lawyers representing people who are not American citizens, who many believe have no right to be in this country? Why should they get that kind of representation?
Well, one, I think it's a reflection of our values. By and large, we are a nation of immigrants, and I think that that's what makes us America. And so we should protect immigrants and refugees who are coming today, just as our families did. But also the Constitution applies to everyone. The Supreme Court has upheld that those protections apply to everyone physically in the United States, regardless if they're here lawfully or not. And we, again, are seeking to uphold the law that says that people have the right to seek asylum. Congress codified that law and made it a part of our national law, so we are seeking to do that.
All right. Larry Sandigo of the Florence Project, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
When we come back, Arizona lost a giant, John McCain, but welcomed the state's first female U.S. Senator. A look back at the top stories of 2018. But first, what's next in 2019 for the city of Phoenix? Will the election for mayor end the chaos at the city council? Stay with us.